Why was his name echoing again, after all this time? The fluorescent lights in the briefing room buzzed faintly, casting harsh shadows across Lieutenant Commander Jake's weathered face. He stared at the satellite photos spread across the metal table, but the images weren't what unsettled him. It was a feeling, the same gnawing instinct that had saved him more than once. 15 years of covert operations had honed it into something sharper than logic. Tonight, that instinct screamed louder than the words on the mission brief. "We have a priority extraction," said evenly, but his jaw tightened as if the words themselves cut deeper than steel. Around the table, 5 men moved in practiced rhythm. Petty Officer paused mid-stroke as he cleaned the bolt of his sniper rifle, his hand steady even when his voice carried quiet suspicion. Davis, the comms man, didn't look up, fingers dancing over frequencies with the restlessness of a man who never trusted silence. His hands sorted medical supplies with precision, but his eyes gave away a story of too many battlefield losses. Williams and Torres exchanged wary glances, the kind of look brothers-in-arms give when something in their gut feels off, but neither wants to say it aloud. The asset was Nightingale. The CIA claimed he had intelligence about a chemical weapons transaction scheduled for tomorrow night, a deal that could mean thousands of civilian deaths if left unchecked. Too clean, too convenient. Finally voiced what all of them felt. "Sir, respectfully, when has the agency ever made an extraction this easy?" His eyes didn't waver. "Minimal guards, no air defenses, drop zone clean, feels like we're walking into a training op." Didn't disagree. The profile read like something written for cadets, not seasoned operators. Still, he swallowed his doubts. Orders were orders. But then there was the photograph. The one he pulled from the folder like it weighed 100 pounds. He hesitated before flipping it face up on the table. The room's air seemed to thin. It was a face they all knew. Asian features, sharp eyes, that crooked smile none of them could forget. "Tommy," whispered Williams, his voice barely audible. "That's impossible." Their brother-in-arms, the comms genius, the one they'd buried in their minds 2 years ago after Operation Broken Arrow, declared KIA, gone. Except here he was, alive, and now he wanted them. His voice stayed calm, but inside, something old and poisonous stirred. He survived, he's resurfaced, and he's claiming intel that could prevent mass casualties. But why now? Why ask for specifically? The Black Hawk's rotors thundered overhead, drowning out unspoken questions. As the helicopter banked toward insertion, gripped his rifle. Was this a reunion or a trap dressed up as redemption? He didn't have time to answer before boots hit dirt, and the mountains swallowed them whole. 3 kilometers of jagged rock stretched between the drop zone and the compound. Under the eerie glow of night vision, the team moved like shadows. Silent, efficient, every step practiced. Still's chest felt heavy. Memories of Broken Arrow pressed in the night had disobeyed, stayed behind, chasing data on an imminent attack. Had given the abort order. Had whispered through the comms, "Someone has to do the right thing, Jake." 20 minutes later, fire and thunder consumed him. Or so they had thought. Now, 2 years later, couldn't stop wondering. If had lived through that inferno, who had he become? His voice cut through the silence in his earpiece. "Sir, with respect, if we've been dark this long, how do we know he hasn't been turned?" The words stung because had thought them himself. He forced them aside. "Focus. Get the team there, 1 click left." Through night vision, the compound came into view, stone walls, positioned perfectly in a valley. Too perfect. Sandbags, reinforced doors, firing lanes carved into the ridges. It wasn't a hideout, it was a cage. His gut clenched. They were walking into the kind of trap only someone like could design. And from higher ground, another set of eyes already knew it. Lay motionless beneath a suit, her breathing so steady it barely stirred the dry grass. Her cheek pressed against the stock of her rifle, scope trained on the same compound's team now approached. She'd been here 18 hours, contracted to watch arms movement in the valley. But when she intercepted Calm's voice crackling through the static, everything inside her froze. Even through the green tint of optics, she recognized his gait, the careful, deliberate stride of a man who had survived too many ambushes, and it twisted something inside her. Because his name was etched into the worst night of her life. Her brother had been the one in the air that night, 72. A helicopter swallowed by fire after answering team's mayday. She'd heard his voice over the radio, calm, professional, calling through chaos as his bird spiraled toward the mountains. She hadn't been there to save him. She had only listened as his voice cracked into silence. And later she learned why. She dug through classified whispers, called in favors, pieced together truths that others wanted buried, had been sent into this botched mission. Operation Broken Arrow. Her jaw tightened as she adjusted the focus on her scope. 2 years of grief hardened into something colder. For 2 years, she told herself if she ever saw Jake again, she'd watch him fall the way he did. But now here he was, walking straight into a death trap. Her rational side whispered, "Leave." Extraction was waiting 6 hours out. The smart play was to disappear. But her finger traced the trigger guard, and something deeper, older, told her to stay. Because vengeance was simple in fantasy, but watching men walk blind toward slaughter, that was different. Her phone vibrated against her ribs. In 6 hours, package complete. She deleted the message. And stayed. 2:47 hours, the team breached. Hand signal was sharp, decisive, to Overwatch. Davis with him on entry and Williams covering the rear, explosives on the reinforced door. Boom, silence shattered. Inside, the stench hit first. Blood, burnt metal, something darker, swept corners, his rifle steady, but the sight in the center froze him mid-step. A body slumped in a chair. Tommy. Gaunt, hollow-eyed, burned, broken, tortured, but unmistakably him. Davis whispered what they all thought, "Jesus Christ." Knelt, the scar over the brow, the cheekbones, it was him. But his wrists bore marks of zip ties, his knuckles were shattered, his arms by flame, and in his dead hand a note. "Jake, they made me call you here. The intel was fake. This was always about you. Get out now." His blood froze. Then's voice cut through the comms, sharp, urgent. "Sir, movement, perimeter closing, 20+, we're surrounded." Gunfire ripped through the night before could reply. The ambush snapped shut. Muzzle flashes lit the ridges like fireflies from hell. Bullets shattered stone. RPGs shrieked through the dark, shaking the compound to its foundation. His voice was steady even as blood sprayed his hands. "Williams is hit. Artery, he won't last an hour." And somewhere above, watched it all unfold through her scope. Her heart pounded with memory. His voice, calling mayday as his bird went down. And now his voice filled her earpiece, breaking through on emergency frequency. Any station, this is Phoenix 6, Americans under heavy fire, immediate extraction required." The desperation was controlled, but it was there. The same tone had used before flames swallowed him. Her thumb hovered over her comm switch. For 2 years, she had told herself she wanted this, crushed under the same helplessness he had left her brother to die in. But the sound of his voice, the sight of 6 men fighting like cornered animals, bleeding, calling into the void for help that wasn't coming. She closed her eyes. And then she made a choice. Her finger pressed the switch. "Phoenix 6, her voice cracked across his frequency, calm and cold. "This is Reaper. I have eyes on your position. Stand by for support." The war she'd been fighting inside for 2 years ended in that moment. Duty over revenge. And pulled the trigger. What happens when the first shot changes everything? The crack of his rifle split the night like a truth long. One bullet, precise, deliberate, and the heavy machine gun pinning went silent. A body crumpled on the ridge, confusion rippling through the insurgent lines. Confirmed kill, South Ridge, she transmitted, her voice level despite the storm inside her. Phoenix 6, you have a window, move now. Froze at the sound. That voice, calm, sharp, familiar yet impossible. For an instant he forgot the chaos around him, forgotten bullets tearing stone above his head, forgotten the blood soaking his hands as he fought to keep Williams alive. That voice belonged to a ghost. Reaper, whispered, his throat dry, confirm your call sign. But before he could get an answer, her second shot rang out, clean, surgical. An RPG team on the east slope scattered like startled birds, their weapon tumbling down the rocks. And for the first time since the ambush began, survival seemed more than a cruel illusion. Scope tracked faster now, her breathing slow, mechanical. Years of training took over where rage had once lived. Her third shot dropped another fighter, breaking a coordinated flanking maneuver before it could squeeze the seals. But then a hiss. A rifle round cut the air an inch from her cheek, striking stone with a flash that showered her face in burning fragments. The sting drew blood. Her instincts flared. She wasn't alone. Sniper, she hissed into the comm, rolling sideways into a new position. Phoenix 6, I'm being hunted, breaking contact temporarily. Through her scope she caught it, a muzzle flash, faint but unmistakable, northwest ridge 600 meters. The shooter's precision was chilling, perfect placement, forcing her to move but not kill, a hunter's game. Her satellite phone buzzed against her ribs, unknown number. Against every instinct she answered. A voice drawled, smooth as venom. Her blood iced over. Hello, Jackson, she said, settling into fresh cover. Jackson Reeves, former Army Ranger, former ally, the man she had once trusted in combat before she against him, before his dishonorable discharge for selling weapons to the very insurgents they fought. And now here he was, a ghost of another kind. Didn't expect you at this party, Reeves chuckled. But I'm glad. Been waiting to settle our little disagreement. Stomach twisted, but she kept her voice sharp. Still selling your soul to the highest bidder. Business is good, Reeves said casually, especially when they pay me to kill old friends. Down in the compound's mind raced. Her shots had saved them. Whoever Reaper was, she was the only reason they were still breathing. But there was something about her cadence, something in the way she worked, and then it clicked. Reaper, his voice faltered. That was call sign. Silence, then her voice heavy as stone. Was my brother. The truth slammed into him harder than the RPG blasts. Her brother. The pilot who had answered their mayday during Broken Arrow. The pilot who had died in fire whilst team lived. Said breathless, Marine sniper, Afghanistan 2 tour, showed me your picture once. Her reply was ice and fire mixed. Your mission got him killed, Commander. I've been hunting the people responsible for 2 years. Another shot cracked through her scope, another insurgent fell. And now I'm saving you. His throat tightened, shame, guilt, relief. A storm of emotions, none he had time for, but her words carved deeper than any bullet. Why was she here? Why help him? And when this night ended, if it ended, what would she do with the truth she carried? Shifted, her rifle scanning, her shoulder throbbing where stone fragments had cut skin. Reeves was out there, closing distance, circling like a wolf. He fired again, closer now. Each shot wasn't just meant to kill. They were designed to box her in, cut off her exits, herd her toward the bottleneck he wanted. Her phone buzzed again, a text this time, check 6. Instinct screamed. She spun just as another round cut past her shoulder. Reeves had flanked her, already inside 400 meters. You're getting sloppy, his voice crackled through the phone, mocking. 2 years playing contractor made you soft. I remember when you could hit a playing card at 1,000. She bit down against the wave of anger. I remember when you had honor. Honor doesn't pay the bills, Reeves spat back. But your head will, 50 grand bonus. Easiest money I'll ever make." Another shot cracked stone inches from her leg. He was toying with her, the way he had once toyed with insurgent bomb makers in Helmand. Back then, she had held her fire, refusing to risk children in the crossfire. Reeves hadn't hesitated. A boy had died that day. She never forgot. Now the same predator hunted her. And all the while, his voice called in her earpiece. "Reaper, we're pinned at the north wall. Williams is going into shock. We can't move him. We need you." Her chest tightened. Torn between two battles, saving men who didn't deserve's fate, or facing the ghost that had hunted her for years. Duty whispered one answer. Revenge whispered another. She chambered around and chose. Through her scope she tracked Reeves's shadow sliding across stone. He was close, too close. Her rangefinder blinked, 200 meters, closing. Reeves called, voice soft now coaxing. "You know how this ends. You're disciplined, predictable, that's your flaw." But had learned something in her grief. Predictability wasn't weakness, it was control. She crawled toward a narrow ravine, jagged walls pressing in. It was dangerous, a trap of its own, but also an opportunity. A bottleneck, one way in, one way out. She pressed her back to the cold stone, rifle raised, heart hammering. Let him come. Above's team fought like cornered wolves. His rifle cracked until it clicked dry. Tors dragged Williams's limp body while pumped pressure into wounds that wouldn't close. Davis's fingers bled from twisting dials, trying every frequency, begging for extraction that never came. Time was running out, and knew she was their only chance. But Reeves's shadow grew larger on the ravine rim. And when his voice called out again, it wasn't taunt, it was poison. "You want the truth about your brother," his words echoed off stone. "Didn't die because of some mistake. He died because someone wanted him silenced." His blood chilled. "You're lying," she hissed. "Am I?" Reeves sneered. "Ask yourself. Why wasn't court-martialed for Broken Arrow? Why was he promoted? Someone needed a scapegoat, and he played the part." Her chest constricted. Could it be true? 2 years of hatred misplaced. Reeves pressed closer. "Your brother intercepted comms that night. He knew the op was compromised. He knew arms dealers had their hooks in it. They sabotaged his helicopter. Remote detonated the tail rotor. He never stood a chance." His world tilted. Her finger trembled on the trigger. 2 years of grief. 2 years of rage aimed at the wrong man. His voice cut through the haze, raw and urgent. "Reaper, we're out of time. Hostiles massing north. Williams is fatting. We need you." Her heart broke against the weight of choice. And then Reeves's shadow stepped into the bottleneck, rifle raised, face twisted with cruel satisfaction. At that moment understood, revenge wasn't justice. It never had been. Her brother's death was sin. It was the work of men like Reeves. And in that narrow ravine, justice waited on the pull of a trigger. They fired at the same time. Her shot hit center mass, slamming through his vest. His bullet shattered her shoulder, spinning her against the rock. Agony flared white, but muscle memory steadied her rifle. She squeezed again. Her second round caught him in the throat. Reeves staggered, gurgled, and fell face first into the dust, his weapon clattering useless beside him. Silence, except for her ragged breathing. Collapsed to her knees, blood soaking her sleeve, vision swimming. Pain roared through her body, but she keyed her mic. "Phoenix 6, hostile sniper neutralized. I'm wounded but operational. Move your team." His voice came back, fierce and unyielding. "We're coming for you." "Negative," she gasped, fighting to stay conscious. "Williams needs immediate. I'll cover you. Get him out." Her shoulders screamed in protest as she dragged her rifle into position again, scope steadying despite the tremor in her hand. Through the lens she saw them, Tors, Davis, bloodied, bruised, carrying their wounded brother, still moving, still refusing to break. Her heart clenched, because that's what it believed in, that no one was left behind. And tonight would keep that promise in his place. How long can 6 men hold against an army? The night shook with fire and thunder. Bullets tore through stone like paper, RPGs howled across the valley, mortars pounded the compound until the walls crumbled in jagged scars. Smoke mixed with dust, choking lungs and burning eyes. Steam pressed against what little cover remained, their magazines lighter with every desperate exchange. "Williams is crashing," his voice carried over the chaos. His hands worked frantically, pressing bandages into wounds that refused to close. Williams's face was pale, eyes half-lidded, blood soaking the ground beneath him. "We've got minutes, Commander, not hours." His rifle cracked from his new position, each shot measured, each one thinning the tide only slightly. "Last mag," he called, his voice calm but edged with grim finality. "That's it. After this, I'm throwing rocks." His mind worked like fire under ice. Enemy strength, overwhelming, ammunition, nearly gone, extraction, silent. All paths ended in the same place, death. Unless... Davis barked. "Every frequency, keep calling. I don't care if it's UN relief or a ham radio in Kabul. Someone has to be listening." "Yes, sir." Davis's fingers blurred over dials, his headset crackling with static and dead air. His eyes darted, wild with the same fear he refused to speak aloud. Another RPG screamed, exploding against the compound's north wall, sending shards of stone into his back. He winced but kept working, hands never leaving Williams. "If we move him like this, he dies," muttered. "If we don't move him, he dies anyway." The math of war was cruel. Above them, shifted, fighting back a groan as she dragged her battered body into a new firing position. Her left shoulder was ruined, blood soaking through her suit. Pain throbbed in waves, threatening to blur her vision into useless haze. But she couldn't stop. Her scope steadied on a shadow moving through the rocks, an insurgent bounding toward the north wall with an RPG strapped to his back. She exhaled, squeezed. The round punched through his chest before he could aim. "One down," she transmitted, her voice sharp despite the pain. "North wall is clear for now." Her hand trembled as she reloaded. She could feel her strength ebbing. But every time her mind begged her to rest, his voice filled her memory. "Mayday, mayday. This is 72 taking heavy fire." She hadn't saved him, but she would save them. "Contact East Slope," Torres shouted, unleashing bursts from his M4. 3 figures darted between cover, coordinated, disciplined. These weren't farmers with rifles, these were trained, professional. Turned his last bullets toward them, dropping one, wounding another. But the third kept moving, bounding closer with relentless precision. Davis barked, "Any luck?" "Negative," Davis snapped, sweat dripping down his face. "They're jamming everything. I've got dead air across all bands." "Keep trying." The sound of boots crunching stone made glance left. Was dragging Williams toward the rear exit, Torres covering with tight bursts. Joined them, shoulder slamming against a splintered doorframe. "Sir," growled, "he won't survive the move. But if we stay, none of us do." Looked down at Williams, face ghost pale, lips flecked with blood. His chest rose in shallow jerks, each one weaker than the last. He had minutes. His decision hardened. "We move." Through her scope, saw them break cover, carrying Williams into the open. Her heart seized. Every instinct screamed that it was suicide. "Phoenix 6, hold your position," she barked. "You can't cross that ground without cover." "We don't have a choice," his voice came back, low but steady. Swore under her breath. She adjusted her scope, ignoring the agony that flared in her shattered shoulder. 3 more targets converged on the LZ, closing fast. Her shot dropped the lead fighter. The second scrambled, dove for cover. The third raised an AK, spraying toward Torres as he dragged Williams. Squeezed again. The rifle bucked, fire shot through her arm, but the insurgent crumpled. Her vision blurred. She blinked hard, forcing it clear. "Phoenix 6, 2 down. Third suppressed, push now." She heard a grunt of acknowledgement, followed by the ragged sound of boots pounding gravel. "Reaper, we see open ground," transmitted, his breath labored. "What's the situation north?" Swept her scope. Enemy muzzle flashes winked in the distance, systematic, moving to choke off escape. She counted quickly. Too many, at least 10. "You've got hostiles converging," she said. "I'll thin them, but once you break, you run, don't look back." His voice crackled over comms, grim. "Sir, she's not wrong, it's now or never." His jaw clenched. He hated leaving someone in the fight alone, but shots had already bought them more time than they deserved. "Copy," he said, voice steady. "We move on your mark." Lined her scope on the nearest fighter, adjusted for wind, and exhaled. "Mark!" Her shot cracked, the man dropped. His team surged forward, boots hammering rock, carrying Williams between them. His next shot disrupted a machine gun crew setting up along the ridge, sparks flying as the gun toppled. But for everyone she dropped, two more seemed to appear. The valley was alive with muzzle flashes, fire raining down on the fleeing SEALs. Pushed her body harder, pain burning through her shoulder until she thought she'd black out. Still, she fired again, and again, until the magazine clicked dry. Her trembling hands scrambled for the next. Down below, Davis screamed over comms. "Sir, they're cutting us off, east slope closing in." "Push," roared, "keep moving." Bullets snapped past, sparks showering from stone. Torres stumbled under Williams's weight but forced himself upright. Bled from a fresh graze across his arm, yet never let go of his patient. Fired his sidearm in controlled bursts, eyes burning with defiance. Still, the enemy pressed closer. And then salvation appeared in the sky. A low thrum, the unmistakable chop of twin rotors. Looked up and saw it, lights glinting against the stars. A Chinook, descending, gunships escorting above, already spitting fire into the valley. "Extraction inbound," Davis cried, disbelief breaking into his voice. The air exploded with tracers as the door gunners opened fire, tearing into insurgent positions. Dust whipped across the valley as the heavy bird flared for landing. Lips cracked into a grim smile, relief and finality. She'd gotten them this far. Her job was done. "Reaper, what's your position for pickup?" His voice hammered through her earpiece. She stared at the blood pooling beneath her, soaking into the dust. Her vision swam, edges going dark. She had given too much blood, lost too much strength. If she tried to reach them, she'd collapse long before she got there. And if they tried to reach her, they'd risk Williams, the bird, and themselves. She closed her eyes, exhaled slowly. "Phoenix 6, I'm 400 meters southeast. Elevated terrain," she transmitted. Her voice was weak but unbroken. "But listen to me. Williams doesn't have time, that bird can't stay long, you know the math." The silence on the other end stretched, filled with the weight of a commander's impossible choice. His voice finally came back, low and tight. "Reaper, we're coming for you." "Negative," she cut him off. "Williams first, would understand, get your people home." Through her scope, she saw him pause, torn between duty and loyalty. She saw the pain in his face, the same guilt that had lived there since Broken Arrow. And then, reluctantly, he nodded. "Reaper, this isn't over. I'll come back for you." She managed a broken smile. "I'll hold you to it." The Chinook's ramp dropped, and Torres hauling Williams inside. And Davis scrambled after them. Was last, his eyes scanning the ridges one final time before he disappeared inside the bird. The helicopter lifted, rotors pounding, tracers lighting the sky as it climbed into the night. Slumped deeper into her hide, her rifle heavy against her chest, her vision blurred into darkness. But even as the world faded, one truth anchored her. Death wasn't in vain. Tonight she had made sure of it. What does survival mean when the one you lived for is already gone? Beep, beep, beep. The sound was faint at first, seeping into the dark like distant footsteps. steady, relentless. She tried to open her eyes, but the world was heavy, dragging her down. For a moment she wondered if this was it, the end she had expected, alone on a mountainside, blood soaking into stone. But then light cracked through, white, blinding, sterile. Blinked against the brightness, her throat raw, her lips cracked. The antiseptic sting of a hospital filled her nose. Machines hummed around her, their wires threaded into her arms. Her left shoulder was locked in a brutal cage of metal pins and bandages, throbbing with dull fire. She was alive. Barely. Her breath shuddered out, disbelief heavy in her chest. Somehow she'd been pulled from that mountain. Somehow her story hadn't ended where she thought it would. But why? Why had she been spared when hadn't? Her head tilted slightly, and through the blur a shape came into focus. A man, slouched in a chair beside her bed, elbows on his knees, eyes fixed on the floor. His hair was more than she remembered, his uniform creased, his face carved with lines that looked older than the man himself. Jake. The name alone stirred heat in her chest, rage, resentment, but also something else, something quieter, harder to name. As if sensing her eyes on him, he looked up. For a moment neither spoke. The silence stretched, heavy with everything unsaid. "You're awake," he said finally, his voice low, rough, almost relieved. Her lips parted, but the words scraped her throat like sandpaper. "Why?" His brow furrowed. "Why what?" Her voice was hoarse but sharp. "Why am I here? Why didn't you let me die on that ridge?" The question cut deeper than she intended, but she didn't pull it back. She had lived with ghosts long enough. Leaned forward, his hands clasped, his voice steady but carrying weight. "Because Williams lived, because and Davis lived. They all lived because you stayed. I wasn't going to let you trade your life for theirs." Her eyes burned, but not with gratitude, with fury. "Traded his life for you, and you let him burn." The words hung between them like smoke. Didn't flinch, though the line of his jaw tightened. "Your brother died a hero," he said quietly, "but you've carried the wrong weight all this time." Her heart clenched, confusion tightening her chest. "What do you mean?" He hesitated, then reached for the folder on the table beside him. A manila folder worn at the edges, stamped with classified seals. He laid it on her lap, his eyes steady on hers. "Reeves wasn't lying," he said. "Not about everything." The name made her stomach twist. Reeves, the snake. She remembered the way his voice had crawled into her ears in that ravine, taunting her with poison. She wanted to believe he was wrong, that her hatred had been justified. That had been the cause. But the way looked at her now, not defensive, not pleading, just tired, worn, heavy with truth. It terrified her more than any bullet. Her shaking fingers opened the folder. Inside, photos, reports, communications logs, names. And one page that froze her completely. Awarded Medal of Honor posthumously. The words blurred as her vision swam. Her breath caught. She looked up at, rage and sorrow tangled like barbed wire. "What is this?" "It's the truth," he said simply. "What Reeves told you about Broken Arrow, about intercepting comms, about the arms dealers pulling strings, it was real. He found something that night, something big. He died trying to expose it, and the people who orchestrated it made sure no one would ever know." Her throat ached as she whispered, "And you let me believe it was you, for 2 years." His eyes closed for a beat, his voice low when he answered. "Because someone had to carry the blame. If I had pushed for the truth, the brass would have buried it deeper. They would have erased completely. But if I carried the guilt, if I let them put the weight on me, at least part of him lived on. At least his sacrifice meant something." Her chest heaved, anger colliding with grief. "You think carrying guilt honors him. You think letting me hate you is what he deserved." His jaw worked. "I think deserved the truth, and I failed him by not fighting harder to get it out. But now," he gestured to the folder, "now the truth in your hands." Stared at the pages, her heart breaking anew. She thought of Grin, his steady hands on his yoke, the way he had always believed in something bigger. He hadn't died because failed. He hadn't died because of bad luck. He had been murdered, silenced. For 2 years she had poured her soul into hatred, and all along the real enemy had been untouchable, hidden in shadows, profiting from blood. Her tears finally spilled, hot against her cheeks. I wasted 2 years hatting the wrong man. Leaned back, his eyes softening. No, you spent 2 years surviving the only way you knew how. Don't punish yourself for carrying grief the way it came to you. Grief doesn't play fair. The words cut through her chest, quiet and sharp. She hated that part of her believed him. Silence stretched again, broken only by the monitors beeping steadily at her bedside. At last she asked the question that had been clawing at her since the mountain. Why me? Why did Reeves know I'd be there? Why were you dragged back into this? His face hardened. Because whoever orchestrated this ambush wanted both of us in that valley. Me, because I've been chasing their shadows too long. You, because was the one man who almost exposed them. And what better way to bury the truth than to turn his sister into another casualty? Her stomach churned. The scope of it all pressed heavy on her chest. So what now? She whispered. Stood slowly, the lines of command still etched in his shoulders despite the weariness in his eyes. Now we fight them the only way would have wanted, with the truth. He tapped the folder gently. The CIA is building a task force off the records Reeves kept. Arms dealers, rogue contractors, corrupt officers, it all ties together. They want you on it. I want you on it. Her throat closed. She had left the Marines because the weight was too much, because death had shattered the very foundation of her service, and now was asking her to step back into the fire. She wanted to say no, to walk away, to disappear into civilian life and finally bury the ghosts. But she thought of his voice on the radio, calm, brave, steady, even in death. She thought of the SEALs who had lived because she stayed behind. And she thought of Reeves's sneer, his words twisting truth into cruelty. Justice wasn't a medal. It wasn't a folded flag on a dresser. It was living for what the dead no longer could. Her jaw clenched. Her voice was quiet, but it didn't waver. Then we finish what started. His eyes held hers for a long moment. Then he nodded. Together. He turned to leave, pausing at the door. For the first time since she'd known him, the weight seemed lighter on his face. He said softly, some debts can't be paid back, only forward. And then he was gone, leaving her with the folder, the truth, and a choice she already knew she'd made. She closed her eyes, gripping the file against her chest, whispering into the sterile silence. Rest easy, I'll carry it from here. What does it mean to say yes to a war you already swore off? The days blurred in white walls and antiseptic silence. His world became the measured rhythm of monitors, the slow drip of IV lines, and the endless ache in her shoulder where steel pins held shattered bone together. Nights were worse. That was when the beeping faded into memory's echo, the static of radios, the sound of his voice breaking across fire, the sharp crack of Reeves's taunts before her bullet silenced him. She'd thought surviving meant freedom, but survival was only the start of another war. Rehab came hard. Nurses propped her up, therapists pressed her to walk, her body screaming with every stretch. She bit down on pain, jaw locked, refusing to give them the satisfaction of seeing her break. She had already broken once, the night she lost. She would not do it again. And always the folder sat on the bedside table, had left it there, heavy with truths too long buried. When the nurses left, when the silence grew unbearable, she opened it. Names stared back. Men in suits, officers with stars on their collars, contractors who had sold weapons to the highest bidder. Her brother's blood was woven into every line. She studied the faces until they etched themselves into her dreams, until vengeance and justice blurred into one. One night the door opened softly, not a nurse, not a doctor. He looked older than the last time she'd seen him, and she had thought he already carried a lifetime on his shoulders. His uniform hung looser, as if even fabric could feel the weight he bore. In his hand, he carried a plain black folder, no markings. "Intel package," he said quietly, placing it on her lap. "Straight from Langley. Reeves kept meticulous records, bank accounts, shipment routes, names of every handler who paid him. We're building something from it." Her eyes narrowed. "We." Met her stare without flinching. "Joint Task Force, off the books. SEALs agency, a few people from JSOC who still believe in the mission. They want me to lead, and they want you." The words cut deeper than he knew. Want you. She had wanted to be wanted once, by the Corps, by her country, by the same system that had fed into fire and buried him in silence. She forced her voice steady. "Why me?" His answer was simple. "Because you see what others don't, because you don't flinch when it matters, and because this war isn't mine anymore. It's yours too." Her chest tightened. She hated that part of her wanted to say yes. "I walked away once," she muttered, "after I swore I was done." "And yet you stayed on that ridge," countered. "You stayed when you could have left. Don't tell me you're done, not when I've seen the way you fight." Silence stretched between them, filled with truths neither wanted to voice. Finally she asked, "And when we find them, when we pull the names from the shadows, what then?" His eyes hardened. "Then we do what your brother died trying to do, we finish it." She looked down at her ruined shoulder, at the cage of metal keeping her together. Broken, but not finished. Her voice was quiet when she answered, "Then I'm in." Recovery turned into training. Weeks later she stood in a quiet range room, her arm bound tight, pain biting with every motion. The rifle felt heavier now, but her breathing stayed the same. Slow, steady, controlled. The first shot bucked against her healing body. Fire shot through her shoulder. She almost dropped it. Almost. But the round punched through the target at 600 meters. She chambered another, fired again. By the fifth round her breath came ragged, but the pattern held, tight, deadly. The instructor said nothing, only nodded. Watched from the corner, arms crossed, his face unreadable. When she finally lowered the rifle, sweat dripping, he spoke. "You're not ready," he said flatly. Her teeth clenched. "I just put 5 rounds through a man's heart at 600 meters. "You're still bleeding inside," he replied. "I've seen men fight with broken bones. That's easy. The hard part is fighting when your heart's cracked open." She hated him for being right. The task force came together in shadows. No patches, no ranks, no official insignia. Just ghosts with names and scars. Arrived first, his rifle slung casually but his eyes sharp as ever. He had walked off the mountain alive because of her. He didn't forget it. "Guess I owe you a drink," he muttered, though his gaze softened when it landed on her pinned arm. "Or maybe you owe me one, considering I had to watch your back." Smirked despite herself. "You'd have been dead in the dirt without me." "Fair," admitted with a rare grin. Came next, carrying medical gear even in a briefing room. His hands still bore faint scars from holding Williams's blood inside his body. He nodded at but said nothing. His silence weighted more with respect than words could ever carry. Williams arrived last, limping but alive, his face pale but determined. When he saw her, his eyes filled with something she hadn't expected, gratitude. "I don't remember much," he said quietly, "but I remember your voice in the comms. You kept us alive, thank you." She looked away, throat tight. She didn't know how to answer thanks she didn't feel she deserved. Davis, ever restless, leaned back in his chair, tapping at a new comms rig. "We're off the books now. No backup, no rescue. If we go down, it's dust and silence. You sure you're in?" Met his eyes. "I was in before you even asked." Entered last. The room fell silent, the way it always did when he walked in. Not because of authority alone, but because every man there had followed him through hell and lived. He laid out the map. Supply lines traced across borders. shipment routes feeding warlords and terrorists alike, and at the center names, contractors, officers, foreign contacts. Reeves had been a pawn, but the players above him still moved pieces. "This is our war now," said quietly. "No headlines, no medals, just the work started it, we finish it." His chest tightened at the sound of her brother's name. She didn't look at, but she didn't look away either. That night, alone in her quarters, she sat with his picture. The same grin, the same eyes that had always believed in more than the world deserved. "I don't know if I'm strong enough," she whispered. But the silence answered the way it always did. Strength wasn't about never breaking. It was about breaking, then standing anyway. And she would stand. 2 weeks later, the task force moved. Their first operation wasn't flashy, no gunships, no headlines. Just shadows slipping into a warehouse near the border. Intelligence suggested a shipment of stolen chemical precursors, bound for black markets that would sell them to whoever paid most. Lay prone on an overlook, scope sweeping the yard below. Trucks lined in neat rows. Guards smoking, rifles slung carelessly. Too relaxed. "Something off," she murmured into comms. "Define off," whispered back. "They're not nervous enough," said. "This isn't a shipment, it's bait." Her words froze the team. His voice came low, calm but edged. "Copy, adjust. Reaper, you have overwatch. Everyone else fall back positions now." Through her scope, saw it before the rest. Heat signatures moving from shadows. Too many. More than the intel brief suggested. Her gut clenched. It was Broken Arrow all over again. And for the first time since that night on the ridge, she felt it, not rage, not vengeance, but fear. Because the ghosts weren't finished with them yet. How many times can a soldier walk into a trap and survive? The night around the warehouse pulsed with silence too heavy to trust. His cheek pressed to the rifle stock, her scope sweeping across the compound's yard. Trucks stood in perfect rows, tarps covering their beds. Guards leaned on rifles, smoking, their posture too casual for men guarding chemical weapons. Her gut twisted. This wasn't cargo, it was theater. "They're not nervous enough," she whispered into comms. Crouched behind a shipping container below, muttered back, "I see the same thing. Too clean, too staged." His voice cut in, sharp and calm. "Reaper, confirm, you think this is bait." Adjusted her scope, her breath slow, her trigger finger steady despite the cold tremor in her injured shoulder. Beyond the guards, faint heat blooms shimmered on her thermal optics. Shapes waiting in the shadows, their rifles cradled tight. "Confirmed," she said, her tone leaving no room for doubt. "We're not hunting them, they're waiting on us." The silence on comms was brief, heavy with recognition. Then's voice measured but urgent. "All teams fall back positions. Quiet and clean, Reaper overwatch." The squad shifted like shadows, peeling away from exposed approaches. Dragged a small med kit closer to Williams, still limping from his leg wound but stubborn enough to come on the op anyway. Davis's hands flew over his comm rig, whispering curses as he scanned the spectrum. "Sir," he said finally, tension edging his tone, "I've got faint emissions encrypted. They've got jammers running just like the mountains." The memory burned through them all. Broken Arrow, the ambush, Reeves. History repeating itself. Swept her scope left, then froze. A glint glass reflecting moonlight, high on a rooftop overlooking the yard. Her heart dropped. "Sniper," she hissed. "North building, rooftop corner, he's glassing the yard." Before could reply, the world exploded. Machine guns lit from the shadows, their barrels spitting orange fire across the yard. The guards dropped cigarettes, shouldered rifles, and joined in. Bullets raked through the open spaces where the seals had been seconds before. "Contact, contact," barked, his rifle already cracking back. "Multiple shooters east and north." His finger squeezed. The rooftop sniper jerked back, his body folding as her round punched through his scope. "Rooftop sniper down," she transmitted, even as another muzzle flash lit her periphery. She rolled instinctively, a round chewing stone where her head had been. Her shoulders screamed fire, but she forced herself prone again, lining up her next shot. Below slammed into cover behind a rusted loader, his rifle barking short, precise bursts. He felt the old familiar weight settle into his chest, the weight of command. Every decision was blood, every order a knife edge. "West wall," he snapped. "Copy." Davis jammed their jammers. "I need a line out now." Davis hunched lower, sweat dripping as he twisted dials. "Working it. Give me 2 minutes." "We don't have 2 minutes," growled, firing controlled bursts to keep a squad of advancing fighters pinned. Williams, pale and gritting his teeth, pulled Torres to cover. "I can still fight." "You can barely walk," Torres snapped, shoving him down behind the loader. "Cover our 6 or bleed out trying to be a hero." The fight roared around them, disciplined fire from trained shooters. Whoever had laid this trap wasn't a ragtag militia. This was professional. His gut tightened. He knew this pattern, same ambush discipline, same fire control. This wasn't insurgents. This was contractors. Scope tracked across the yard. Each fighter moved with precision, bounding, covering, suppressing, not the erratic chaos of. She clenched her teeth. Reeves had been one of them. There were more. His kind never worked alone. Her scope steadied on one fighter sprinting toward a flank. She squeezed, dropped him mid-stride. "Phoenix 6, I count at least 2 squads," she transmitted, voice sharp despite the tremor in her arm. "These aren't locals. They're trained. Private contractors, same style as Reeves." His reply was terse. "Copy, hold them off, we need an exit." She wanted to laugh, bitter and sharp. Hold them off. With what? Her shoulder was a ruin, her blood leaking hot through her sleeve, but she didn't say it. Instead, she chambered another round. "Sir," Davis's voice cracked through the chaos. "I've punched through, one channel clear." Grabbed his mic. "Any station, this is Phoenix 6, American personnel under heavy fire, grid coordinates Bravo Kilo 9217. Immediate extraction required." Static. Then faintly, "Phoenix 6, this is Raven Flight 2 minutes out. Hold your position." His chest eased slightly. "Air cover, maybe." But 2 minutes in a kill box was a lifetime. "Copy, Raven, 2 minutes will hold." He looked at his men, their faces hard, drawn, unflinching. He looked up towards Overwatch, though he couldn't see her. And in that moment he knew. They would not all walk away. Scope tracked another target. She fired, the recoil jolting her broken shoulder so violently she saw stars. Her rifle almost slipped. She bit down on a cry, chambered again. Her vision swam, her breathing ragged. Her body screamed to stop. But she forced the world smaller down to her scope, her crosshairs, her targets. One more shot. Always one more. Through her earpiece, voice came, steady even through the chaos. "Reaper, Raven flights inbound. 1 minute. We need cover to reach the open." Her lips cracked in a grim smile. "Copy, you'll have it." She lined her scope, fired. Another man fell. Her hands trembled so badly she almost missed the next shot. She adjusted, forced herself steady. His voice filled her memory, calm, even in fire. "Mayday, mayday. This is 72, taking heavy fire." "Not again, not tonight." Her rifle cracked once more. Above, the night split with the thunder of jets. Twin streaks of fire cut across the sky, missiles slamming into the far ridge where machine guns had raked the yard. The earth shook, flames clawing into the dark. "Raven on station," Davis shouted, relief breaking into his voice. "Go," roared. "All teams move now." The squad surged from cover, sprinting across open ground toward the south fence. Laid down suppressive fire, his last round snapping sparks from steel. Torres and hauled Williams between them, his face ghost pale but his eyes burning with will. Was last, his rifle barking precise, final bursts. From her perch watched them break. She covered their sprint, each round buying seconds, each shot carving space. Her last magazine ran dry. Click. Her breath caught, empty. She dropped the mag, fumbling for the last one clipped to her vest. Her bloody hand slipped, almost losing it. She slammed it home, chambered. "Reaper, this is Phoenix 6, voice crackled, ragged but steady. "We're at the fence, clear us through." She steadied her scope. Through the crosshairs, she saw movement, 3 fighters waiting in ambush, rifles trained on the gap. Her fingers squeezed. One dropped. She swung left, fired again, the recoil tearing fire through her arm. Second dropped. The third raised his rifle. Her shot cracked half a second faster. "Clear," she breathed. Through her scope, she saw and his men push through the fence, slipping into the night beyond. Her chest loosened, relief sharp and painful. But then a movement. Her scope caught a shadow in the smoke, slipping out from the far side of the warehouse, taller than the others, broader, his rifle cradled with the ease of long familiarity. Her breath caught. It was Reeves. He was dead. She had killed him. But the man's face cold, eyes sharp with recognition. Another ghost. And before she could fire, he disappeared into the dark. Her blood chilled. The network was bigger than Reeves. And it had only just begun. What if the real enemy isn't the one across the scope, but the one sitting at your table? The safe house smelled of dust and diesel, a forgotten outpost on the edge of nowhere. Maps and comm rigs littered the table, cables snaked across the floor, and the glow of laptops painted tired faces in pale light. The team had made it out of the warehouse alive, barely. Ravens had torn the valley apart, buying just enough chaos for Squad to slip through the south fence. But survival carried a bitter taste. They hadn't seized contraband. They hadn't captured intel. They had walked straight into another trap. And someone, somewhere, knew every step they would take. Sat apart from the others, her shoulders strapped tight, blood seeping faintly through fresh bandages. She cleaned her rifle in silence, each motion mechanical, her jaw set. She hadn't forgotten the face she'd seen slipping through the smoke, cold, watching her with recognition before vanishing. Reeves had been only one piece. There were others. Leaned against the wall, eyes half shut but rifle across his lap. Wrote notes on Williams's vitals, his hands moving with the precision of a man who had lived too many nights like this. Tors cleaned mud from his boots, silent but alert. Davis hunched over his comms rig, the blue glow of screens reflecting off his restless eyes. Stood at the table, the map spread before him, the lines of his face shadowed by lamplight. He looked older than ever, like the weight of every bad call and every body bag had carved themselves into his skin. "Who sold us out?" broke the silence at last. No one answered. Because the truth was bitter, someone had. Finally spoke, his voice even but sharp. "Intel was too specific. They knew we'd come. They knew where we'd be. This wasn't just bad luck." His voice cut across the room, steady but cold. "It's someone feeding them from inside." Eyes shifted. No one wanted to say it aloud. But the silence said enough. Later, alone, sat with Sfodo, her thumb tracing the edges of the frame. His grin still mocked her, not in cruelty but in memory. He had believed in honor. He had believed in trust. She whispered into the quiet, "How do I trust anyone when you're not here to remind me?" No answer came, only the echo of her own doubt. She thought of his face in the hospital, tired but honest. His voice carrying guilt that wasn't his alone. He told her some debts could only be paid forward. But trust felt like another battlefield. 2 nights later, the task force gathered again. Laid out new intel, his tone clipped. Raven's strike recovered more than wreckage. Drone footage caught one figure leaving the warehouse before detonation. Identity unconfirmed, but Reaper called it. His jaw tightened. Face, contractor discipline, not local. Nodded. Langley pulled a match, former ranger, Name's Cole, discharged 5 years ago. Last seen contracting in Africa, disappeared 2 years back. Blood ran cold. She knew the name, had mentioned him once in a letter home, casual like a shadow on the periphery. "What's his tie to Reeves?" asked. Exhaled. Reeves was small time compared to, built the network Reeves worked for, weapons smuggling, rogue operations. Stumbled onto's operation the night he died. Silence dropped heavy, the truth tasted of ash. Hadn't just died because of chance. He had died because wanted him gone. His fists clenched until her nails dug blood from her palm. His voice softened. This isn't just about supply lines anymore. Tying contractors, rogue officers, and arms dealers into something bigger. Found the edges. We're staring at the core. His voice was steady, but her eyes burned. Then we finish it for him. But finishing it required trust, and trust was cracking. That night Davis pulled aside, his voice low, urgent, overheard through the thin walls of the safe house. "Sir, you don't see it. Someone in this room is feeding them. Every move we make, they're waiting. It's not chance." His reply was steady, "I know." "Then who?" Davis pressed. A pause, then's answer colder than steel. "That's what I'm going to find out." Lay awake long after, her mind spiraling. Betrayal among them. One of the men had died saving, or the commander who carried his ghost might be the very knife in their backs. The next mission came fast. No rest, no reset. A shipment moving through the desert. Its network shifting weapons across a dried riverbed, using trucks painted as humanitarian aid. The task force had one chance to intercept. Lay in the dust, her scope sweeping the convoy. Heat shimmered across the sand. Her body screamed from every injury, but her eyes stayed sharp. "Convoy in sight," she whispered. 8 trucks, 2 technicals with mounted guns, 20 fighters minimum. His voice came low. "Copy, I've got eyes." His order followed, crisp. "Hold positions, wait for my mark." The trucks rumbled forward, dust clouds trailing behind. Fighters lounged in the backs, rifles loose, too confident. Adjusted her breathing, her crosshairs steady on the lead driver. Her finger rested on the trigger. And then static. Her calm cracked with a voice she hadn't expected, smooth, cold. The voice drawled, still chasing ghosts. Her blood iced. She glanced at her frequency. It wasn't possible. He was on their channel. "Don't bother warning the others," continued, his tone almost amused. "You're compromised, again. Same as the mountains, same as the warehouse. You think you're hunting me, but you've been dancing to my tune since the start." Her throat went dry. "How?" she whispered. A soft laugh crackled in her ear. "Because one of your own is already mine." Her scope wavered. She forced herself steady, but her heart thundered. Someone inside the team, feeding, selling them out. His voice echoed in memory. "Trust is a choice, but choose carefully." Her finger trembled on the trigger. And for the first time since she'd picked up a rifle, hesitated. The convoy rolled closer, trucks rattling, fighters scanning the horizon. His voice broke through the channel unaware. "All teams stand by, on my mark." Swallowed hard, her scope still on the driver's chest. Her body screamed for action, but her mind whispered doubt. If was telling the truth, then every shot she took, every move they made might already be known. And one of the men beside her was the reason. Her breath shook. Trust, distrust, duty, betrayal. She steadied her crosshairs and whispered to herself, "Guide my hand." How do you fight a war when the enemy wears a familiar face? The desert air shimmered with heat, the convoy rolling steady across the dry riverbed. His cheek pressed against her rifle stock, her crosshairs fixed on the lead truck's driver. She could hear his voice calm in her ear, giving orders. She could feel the sweat sliding down her spine, her broken shoulder screaming with every breath. But she couldn't shake his words. "One of your own is already mine." It poisoned every breath, every glance, every silence inside their comms. Someone she trusted, or tried to trust, was gone. The reason the warehouse had been a trap. The reason the convoy below wasn't just another mission, but another knife waiting to twist. Her finger hovered on the trigger, but her chest locked. What if was right? What if every shot tonight only played into his hands? His voice pressed through the static, sharp but steady. "You good?" She hesitated, then forced steel into her tone. "On target." But her heart whispered doubt. The ambush detonated with violence. His grenade launcher barked first, the lead truck erupting into fire. Scope snapped to the gunner on a technical, her round cracking through his chest before he could swing the mounted weapon. And Torres flanked left, rifles barking in tight bursts. Williams, limping but stubborn, covered the rear with grim determination. The desert roared alive with gunfire. Dust exploded in clouds. Fighters screamed, scattering, some falling, others rallying with chilling discipline. These weren't desperate militia, they were trained mercenaries. Fired, each shot an act of defiance against the doubt gnawing her gut. But the words echoed still. "One of your own is already mine." Fought like stone, his rifle precise, his voice cutting through chaos. "Push forward, clear the trucks." The team advanced, cutting through fighters with methodical force. For a moment, victory felt near. Then Davis's voice cracked through comms, high and panicked. "We're burned, comms compromised, they're moving to flank." His blood froze, comms compromised again. Her scope swept left. Fighters were already shifting, boxing them in with uncanny precision. She heard his laugh echoing faintly in her ear. And then she knew. Davis, the comms specialist, always hunched over his rig, always restless. The one with hands deep in every channel, every frequency. It was him. Her chest tightened, bile rising. She wanted to scream, to tear her earpiece out, to demand answers, but there was no time. "South flank," roared, "cut them off." But didn't move her scope to the flank. She moved it to Davis. He crouched near the rear truck, his eyes darting too often, his hand brushing the transmitter slung against his vest. Even in chaos, it was wrong. His body language screamed something the others couldn't see. Her crosshairs centered on his head. Her finger trembled. Could she do it? Could she kill one of their own? His voice whispered in memory, "Trust is a choice, but sometimes not choosing is worse." She exhaled, slow. Her finger squeezed. The shot cracked. Davis's head snapped back, his body collapsing into the dust. His comm rig fell with him, its screen glowing faintly with an active transmission. Silence fell in her chest, cold. The mole was gone. But the battle was. His men pushed harder, their movements ruthless, disciplined. Shifted her scope, dropping two more fighters even as pain lanced her shoulder. Blood slicked her sleeve, her body breaking, but she refused to let it end here. Fought like fire, grenades shattering trucks into twisted wrecks. Dragged Williams from a blast, both men covered in dust and blood but still firing back. Torres pressed forward, his rifle cracking nonstop. And was everywhere, shouting, firing, dragging men from death. His voice cut through the haze, always calm, always steady. "We need the gun truck down now." Her scope found the technical, its barrel swinging towards position. Her hands shook, her vision blurred, but she forced her breath steady. One shot. The gunner crumpled, the technical went silent. And then through the smoke she saw him. Tall, his rifle cradled with the calm of a man who had killed more than he remembered. His eyes locked on her position across the sands, even through chaos. Recognition. Challenge. He didn't flinch under fire, didn't retreat. He wanted her to see him. Their eyes met across the battlefield. Her breath caught. His ghost stood between them, silent, waiting. She chambered another round, her shoulders screaming, her vision swimming. Raised his rifle, Not at the others, at her. Their shots cracked at the same heartbeat. Her body jerked sideways, the impact searing fire through her ribs. She collapsed behind Stone, gasping, blood flooding her side. Her rifle slipped from her hands. Through haze she saw and pushed forward, their fire driving back. The man vanished into smoke, retreating alive. The world dimmed. When she woke, she was on a stretcher. The night sky wheeled above, stars blurred through tears and pain. Helicopter rotors thundered somewhere distant. Leaned over her, his voice raw but steady. "Stay with me, you hear me. You don't get to leave now." She tried to answer, but only blood touched her lips. Her hand fumbled weakly, gripping his wrist. She rasped. His jaw clenched. "He's not finished, but neither are we." Her chest burned, her strength slipping. She thought of his grin, his voice steady on the radio even at the end. Her whisper barely carried, "Tell him I tried." His eyes softened, grief breaking through his stone. He pressed his hand against hers, fierce. "He knows, and so do I." Her eyes fluttered, darkness reached. Weeks later, recovery again. White walls, machines. Another scar added to a body already map-marked with battles. But this time wasn't alone. Visited first, silent but steady. He left his dog tags at her bedside, for when you forget who's still got your six. Followed, placing a folded note in her hand. Williams wrote it, said you kept him breathing twice. He wants you to know he's nomming his first kid. Tors brought no words, just a nod that carried the weight of respect. And stayed longest. He sat beside her bed, silent until he finally spoke. "You saved us, again. Even bleeding out, you chose to fight. That's who you are, not vengeance, not hate, just someone who refuses to quit." She stared at him, her voice soft but steady. "Still out there." His eyes held hers. "Then we'll find him, but not for revenge, for everyone he silenced." Closed her eyes, memory burning bright. She knew now, justice wasn't about pulling the trigger. It was about carrying the weight the dead could no longer bear. Months later, when she finally walked out of the hospital under her own power, the sky was clear. Blue, endless. She paused, breathing deep. His voice was gone now, not because she had forgotten, but because she had learned to carry it inside. She whispered into the open air, her words for him alone. "Sometimes dignity doesn't speak, it simply acts." And with that she stepped forward. Not finished, never finished. But alive. And that was enough.